INCO terms. We have with us again the new exporter Niku, whom DGFT is trying to assist in establishing her trade. Niku is now stuck with a problem. Niku has found a buyer for her goods in the Middle East. The shipment of her export item from a warehouse to her buyer in the Middle East would involve various steps, including packaging, loading, domestic inland transport, terminal charges at the port, loading on the ship or flight, insurance charges, freight charges, arrival charges at destination port, duties and taxes, delivery to the buyer. While the buyer would pay her for the export item, Niku is confused who would pay for the additional costs in the transportation and who would pay for the insurance of goods while in transit. Well, this is determined by the INCO terms agreed between Niku and her buyer in the Middle East. What are INCO terms? To facilitate exporters and importers across the world, the International Chambers of Commerce has developed some standard international commercial terms called INCO terms. These terms establish buyer and seller responsibilities at each stage of the shipment to avoid misunderstanding. Niku must agree to a particular INCO term with her buyer while generating the export invoice itself. The INCO term also becomes a part of the agreement between the buyer and the seller and is mentioned clearly on all documents involved in the transaction. How does it help? Each INCO term clearly details the breakup of the costs involved and the buyer-seller responsibilities. For example, if the INCO term is EXW, X works, Niku only pays till packaging and delivery right outside a factory gate. The remaining responsibilities to pick it up and get it delivered to the place of choice rests with the buyer. Similarly, if the agreed INCO term is FOB, that is, free on board, the seller's responsibility would involve transporting the goods from seller's premises up to the departing ship or the flight. What are the different types of INCO terms? There are 4 categories. E terms. Most popular is X works. As already explained, if the agreed INCO term is X works or EXW, the seller makes the good available at her premises for the buyer to collect. This term carries the minimum obligation for the seller. F terms. Seller must deliver to the carrier, rail, flight or ship of choice of the buyer. Seller would deliver the goods till the carrier and buyer is responsible for carriage from that point onwards. 3 types of FINCO terms are FOB, that is free on board, FCA, that is free carrier, FAS, that is free alongside ship. FCA can be used for any mode of transport, while FCA or FOB are used only for sea or waterways. C terms. Seller must also contract and pay for the carriage, that is freight or carrying cost, of the choice of the buyer. However, the risk of damage or loss during transit on carriage rests with the seller. The 4 CINCO terms are CIF, that is cost, insurance and freight, CFR, that is cost and freight, CPT, that is carriage paid to, CIP, that is carriage and insurance paid to. CIF or CFR can only be used for transporting on sea or waterways. D terms. Under DAT, seller bears the risk till unloading and clearance at the destination terminal or place as per the specific term. The 3 D terms are DAT, that is delivered at terminal, DAP, that is delivered at place, DDP, that is delivered duty paid. The following matrix should make the distribution of responsibilities clearer. As you move from left to right, that is, from E terms to D terms, the responsibility of the seller increases. You may refer to this chart when in doubt. Which INCO term should NICU use? The INCO term may be decided by the terms offered by the buyer. For example, the buyer might ask for price of the export item at their destination port. This would usually mean CIF. Further, in choosing the INCO term, one must also look at the mode of transport to be used and who is willing to bear the risk and cost of delivery. For example, NICU tries to bargain for X works to start with and finally agrees for FOB. This means that she is responsible to deliver the goods up to the ship departing from India. Once the ship leaves with the goods, her responsibility is over. Please note, to be clear on the risk, it is important to include the correct INCO terms in the agreement and the invoice. One should also refer to the latest version of INCO terms being used. This is only a summary. Each INCO term contains a set of rules and clauses, and you may read them in detail to get a thorough understanding of the same. For more details, you may write or speak to the Niryat Bandhu officer at the nearest DGFT office.